Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think, and slate, dropping unrealistic man, 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the millie, never hear me preach, look on to Philly. Avoid you watching the Eagles all the way through the early 22. Authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that fill the day. Good morning, everybody. It is Memorial Day, May 26, 2025. It's episode 11 of the 3-Point Blitz. That's right, folks. We've been keeping this thing going to the double digits. And today, we're at the point where we're at the conference finals for the NBA playoffs. We got NFL news to talk about. But first, we're going to discuss the rant of the week. Now, some of you guys might be curious as to what I'm going to talk about. Some of you think it's going to be about the tush push. Actually, no, it's not going to be about that. Arku, good morning. What's up? What is it? But this rant of the week is actually going to be about something that happened on ESPN last week. This is going to be about it's going to be about ESPN in general. Last week on the Pick and Roll podcast, Blazed Radio did an excellent rant. This was after, you got Mitch, as always, stopping on. This was after the game 1 between the Pacers and Knicks. Blaze talked about on the 3-Point Blitz. He was watching ESPN. They ran some whole segment comparing Jordan to LeBron, and he went on a rant about that. And I'm going to do a spinoff of that rant. It's about ESPN in general, particularly modern ESPN. How they come up with, they've been doing this now for years now, and this has played a significant role in the ratings decline of them, where they focus on basically TMZ like story headlines and the sports version of celebrity gossip over talking about the games, the players. And there was an example of that. I didn't really see it, but I do know from what Blaze said that they were talking about LeBron versus Jordan and doing a comparison the day after game one with an overtime game that went back and forth between them. David, what's up? That was the problem, part of the problem right there. They're really talking about LeBron and Jordan. Michael Jordan, who hasn't played in 22 years up to this point, and LeBron James, whose team was out in the opening round. And we're having a debate between them. I could see if this was say, an NBA channel debate during the offseason, particularly August, where they don't really have anything to talk about. But this is during ESPN, during the middle of the freaking NBA conference finals talking about this. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this has been going on for years now. Like, we talk about LeBron's new, like, for years you get talking points about LeBron's new diet, or you got skits, basically, like it's Saturday Night Live or something. Like Randy Moss talking with fans about doing the honky tonk. This was an old skit years ago, like right before, during the 2017 season, I think, on Monday Night Countdown. They were in Nashville for a Monday night game, somewhere along those lines. So it was something stupid like that. Randy Moss trying to blend in with the locals. Like, this is what I mean as examples. They do so many dumb skits instead of talking about games, players. And if you want to say, well, LeBron James, despite his age, is still a huge draw, yes, that's true. But part of the reason why is because ESPN has obsessively made a handful of athletes the star talking points of their show for years. They've done this with guys like LeBron James. In the NFL, they did it with Tom Brady, Peyton Manning for so long, made those players the star talking points of their show. And don't get me wrong, these players respectively deserved it. They deserved to be the talking point of it. They were great at their sport, but they're not the only people in the sports world. And ESPN has gotten to a real bad habit of this for years. For years. At this point, to answer the question, putting aside what just happened in game 3, as our coup indicated earlier, at this point, I do got the Thunder winning it all. As if they can bounce back from game 3, they could still win this series, go to the finals, beat either the Knicks or Pacers. And that ties into my rant. ESPN, they talked about these ridiculous stories at the expense of the New York Knicks and Indiana Pacers. We're having a great series, mind you. And you remember, like, for so many years, I haven't really watched ESPN because of this garbage right here. I mean, I remember, right, you see the skits, they talk about, like, I remember before the Monday night game between the Browns and the Rams. Remember the game Lamar had to go to the locker room and come back? Like, I remember earlier in the day, they were doing this whole skit on Baker, talking about his personality a little bit, which I'm not saying there's a problem necessarily with interviewing your players, getting to know a little bit about them. But ESPN will push these like skit-like interviews and try to do comedy bits over certain major sports stories, over certain games. It feels like ESPN will only talk about it if it's someone that they see as one of their stars. Whoever wins the Western Conference, winning it all. Yeah, this year, definitely. I definitely see that happening this year. I got it as the Thunder, but we still got to wait and see. We'll see what happens. Anything could happen. But with ESPN, it's really ridiculous. Instead of talking about, and the ESPN has become so one-dimensional. They become obsessed with big market cities too, like Los Angeles, Dallas. See the obsessive coverage the Dallas Cowboys get, even when they're a mediocre or bad team for years now. I mean, the Cowboys post-dynasty, if you take their overall body of work since then, they've been mediocre overall, but yet they continue to get pushed by ESPN, not just ESPN, but they're just one example. They continue to push about the Cowboys and talk about them at the expense of other teams and other players who are starting to have breakout seasons. I mean, and I could just go on and on and on with examples. They've been doing it for so many years. It's just ridiculous. Some of the bias by ESPN and the shit they talk about over. Instead of talking about guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Obi Toppin, and how that team's really, how that team's got, not Obi, OG Anunoby, instead of talking about all these guys, they're talking about bullshit. And instead, or like Julius Randle, we could be talking about how Julius Randle's put together a nice playoff run for the most part and talk about has he finally found his fit. ESPN, I don't really, you see more just skits and dumb stuff. And they're going to speculate about LeBron. It's just so nonsensical. It is. Like, you even see like First Take for years, like the LeVar Ball, Michael Jordan talk. That was just so, granted, LeVar Ball, it helped LeVar Ball get his platform going to help his kids. But at the same time, the way they went about by having LeVar say he could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one, which I don't think LeVar Ball actually believes that. I think that's just an act to draw attention to himself. But that's just one example over the years of how ESPN allows all these stupid stage shouting matches and all this just dumb buffoonery over actual sports coverage. I remember growing up on SportsCenter, you would see highlights of the game, you would see scores for the different sports, you would see stats and highlights, and that's pretty much how it went. But then somewhere along the line, late 2000s, as I got to around high school, I started to notice a change in direction with ESPN, and that's when I lost interest in following them. So my brain on the week is about ESPN and other sports medias who prioritize trying to be like other mainstream media outlets instead of being a sports media outlet. It's just ludicrous, dude. So that's my rant of the week. Maybe not the best rant, but it is it. Moving on. NFL. Now we're going to talk about the NFL real quickly. They tried to ban the tush push again, and they failed to meet the requirements. It's comical at this point. When they started doing that, when I heard they were going to discuss maybe banning the tush push, I thought it was Groundhog's Day. Because like, wait, haven't I seen this before? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. And guess what? It didn't work. And just like in Groundhog's Day, the same result happens. In this case, they tried to ban the tush push. It didn't work. And thank goodness it didn't. But the fact that it's just mind-boggling to me. They tried to ban. We talked about this yesterday. I was on 10 a.m. on the Sunday show. And we talked about this. Now, reiterate a few talking points that were brought up there. It's been suggested that Roger Goodell doesn't like the play. And I haven't really followed much into Goodell's take on this, so that may or may not be true, especially considering they tried to push for it twice. But I think also it does have to do with the teams. It certainly does. Because the fact that they're trying to ban a play that's so efficient, I feel like it's got to some degree has to do with the team. It does. The teams, because they must be, to some degree, they're upset they can't stop it. It's funny, James yesterday for Fly by the Lake podcast, he said, it just put a few big dudes up in the middle at the center of the defensive line that can stop it, and you can do something about it. I'm like, wow. So, I haven't seen any NFL teams try that against us yet. Funny to think that a fan on YouTube thought of a better solution than these NFL teams. And Arco, since Stuart Scott passed away, ESPN hasn't been the same. Yeah, I know. I feel like ESPN was already going down before that, but then when Stuart Scott died, that was kind of like the last of the glory days is the way I kind of saw it. Because you were already starting to go down that path of the stupid comedy skits, overly staged debates. I mean, there's and I know this is off subject, but there's a difference between fun TV debates and having these stupid shouting contests every day, which is and ESPN crossed that line. I mean, I can understand from time to time having debate staged to make the show entertaining, but ESPN just takes it way off course. But the point being, to your point, Arku, it was already going in that direction beforehand. To me, when Stuart Scott died, that was like the end of the last of Sports Center and ESPN's glory days faded right there. I feel like Stuart Scott was like that last. He was kind of like that last of the proper format, and then it was gone. But back to the tush push. I noticed something. The tush push. I mean, the teams that voted. I'm going to pull up a graphic. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for the graphic right now. That's what I'm taking a minute for. So I'm going to show you guys the graphic from CBS Sports. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share the screen with you guys and show it with you to prove a point about this right here. I'm sure you guys have seen it before, but let's do it. Take one more look. 22 teams. So you needed 24 to reach the threshold. So here we go. So teams that voted to ban it: Cardinals, Falcons, Bears, Panthers, Cowboys, Packers, Vikings, Giants, 49ers, Seahawks, Bucks, Rams, and Commanders. What do they all have in common? They all play in the NFC, the same conference as the Eagles. Now, there are some AFC teams in there too, but notice that it's mostly the NFC teams that voted in favor of banning the play. Teams that got to worry about the Eagles mostly. The teams that did back the tush push were mostly AFC teams: Ravens, Browns, Jaguars, Jets, Patriots, Titans, Dolphins. Notice only 2 NFC teams outside the Eagles backed it up. That right there is a telling sign about that some of these teams got ulterior motives for banning the tush push. Yes, I said it. To me, I just shake my head at. To me, it's just cowardly way. It's just teams trying to take the cowardly way out to try to get up instead of having to deal with it head on. Instead of having to figure out, okay, this play has been nearly unstoppable. How do we find a way to stop it? We got to figure out something to do about it. Instead of coming up with different ideas, trying to come up with an outside-the-box defensive approach, because it's not a trick play at all. You know what if you're an opposing team against the Philadelphia Eagles, you know what it looks like. You know what's going to happen. You got to come figure out, okay, they're doing the tush push. Let's come up with something to stop it. Send our biggest defensive lineman to the middle of the defensive line. That should help. That could be one idea. Nobody thought about that. Instead, they just want to ban it so they don't have to deal with the burden, which is the cowardly way out. But yeah, the tush push lives on for another year. So take that. Groundhog's Day came and went in the NFL world. We get to see it in one more year. That's all I'm going to say there. Now it's time to switch gears to the NBA playoffs itself, which is, I'm sure, what you guys want to hear about. Let's start off with the hot series first. The Indiana Pacers are up 2-1 after the 3 games against the Knicks. Out of the 2 series, no offense to Arku, but as a Sixers fan with no dog in the race, this has been the most exciting series. All 3 games have been competitive and close. They finished off with fun finishes that came down to the wire. And let me tell you something, man. It's awesome. Definitely had a lot of fun with these games. Even though I haven't watched all of them, just following along with them, or even checking out the closing minutes or watching the highlights if I haven't been able to actually watch the games, has been fun. And they've been the most fun of the 2 series. And here you go. You get two young teams giving it their best, playing competitive basketball, games coming down to the wire. That's what the playoffs should be all about. Because to me, that spells two hungry teams looking to win a championship. And somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. But both teams are going to give it their best no matter the outcome. That's what makes playoff basketball exciting to me. When you get these type of series, these are the type of series I love to see. I love the competitive, close games where both teams are giving it their all. That comes down to it. Even if it's a 5-game series where a team wins 4-1, but they're competitive 5 games, I like that. Kind of similar to like the Lakers Magic finals years back. It only went 5 games, but they were competitive 5 games. I'll take that over 7 games of teams trading blowouts all the way to the 7th game. But yeah, and this Knicks Pacers series has been a good one thus far. You've seen Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Tyrese Halliburton and company. You've seen these guys go out there and give it their all. I mean, it's awesome right there. You've seen guys. You've seen Neesmith. You've seen two excellent teams playing their best basketball in this series. Pascal Siakam had a great game 2. Tyrese Halliburton. The talent there's awesome. These are back and forth games. This is what I look for. So far, though, the Pacers have had the Knicks' number. I mean, they've had their number. And even last night, the Knicks came back and won it. Excellent fourth quarter from Karl Anthony Towns. Turned the ship around and give the Knicks a much-needed win because now I wasn't watching the game, but I was following along with the score. And when I was following the score, I was busy with other obligations, but I was still looking at my phone just to see what was going on. I saw the first quarter, second quarter, Pacers were winning. I'm like, Pacers are going to go up 3-0. This might be over. But then even then in the third quarter, I saw it was getting close. Like I looked twice. I saw mid-third quarter was getting closer, but then later was starting to kind of go back in the Pacers direction. I'm like, I think the Pacers got it. But then all of a sudden then I said, next time I look at my phone, it's late in the fourth quarter. It's a close game. I'm like, this might be interesting. And I did manage to catch like the last couple minutes, got to see the Knicks close it out. And so I at least got to catch some of the game, but all around, excellent game. We know Karl Anthony Towns had himself a nice fourth quarter, whether you saw it in person or saw the stats. So credit to Karl Anthony Towns. And Jalen Brunson, he didn't have his greatest game last night, but certainly the fourth quarter made up for it with Karl Anthony Towns' performance. But that's what I love here. Game 1, we saw the three-pointer, followed by the choking gesture done by Tyrese Halliburton, or the two-pointer to tie it up. He tried to hit a 3, but he had to get it off. Took a lucky bounce, but then the Pacers won it. And then we saw game 2. We had another close competitive match, but that's what I love thus far. You've had two really good teams giving their all. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton, we know all playoffs, he's been on a mission. Even yesterday in defeat, he still was the lead scorer with 20 points, even in a losing effort. So he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, and he's going out there in the most important series of the season against their toughest opponent and giving a good effort. So I got to respect what Tyrese Halliburton's doing. Ever since the players voted him the most overrated, he's been going out there giving himself a great playoff run. And now maybe, who knows, regardless of the outcome, whether it's a Knicks win or a Pacers series win, regardless of what happens in the finals, we could be looking back on this playoff run as Tyrese Halliburton's breakout to superstardom one day. I mean, we could be watching history unfold right now, where we look back and say, this was the moment Tyrese Halliburton became a superstar. It was in the 2025 Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, sometimes that happens. We don't realize we're seeing something historic unfold until after the fact. We look back on it later. But either way, we're witnessing right now between the two series, we're witnessing a team finally give their fan base long overdue reward of a championship win, whether it be the Knicks, the Pacers, the Thunder, or Timberwolves. One of those four teams is winning a finals. We're going to see a team that's struggled for years finally get over the hump and win a championship, regardless of which one of the four teams it is. So we're going to see something historic in the end, no matter what. Yeah, Pacers Knicks series. I'm looking forward to Game 4 to see how that goes down, because Game 4 tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm looking forward to it. See what happens. Will the Knicks tie it up, or will the Pacers go up 3-1? Well, I'm looking forward to it. But we do have one more series to talk about. It's the OKC Thunder against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, everyone wants to talk about Game 3 and what happened in Game 3. Let's set the record straight. I thought about it. Yesterday, I did a YouTube short. I didn't really say much about it because it was such a lopsided game. It really wasn't much to say. For those who haven't followed my channel, I've been doing YouTube shorts after each of the games for the conference finals, where I give my brief thoughts on the games. And yesterday, after my recap of the Game 3 T-Wolves Thunder, was the shortest and let's say you could say worst of the shorts, but it was what it was. Butterfly. Oh, yeah, Butterfly. I haven't seen Butterfly in a long time in the comments. I think this might be the first. It's the first time I can remember off the top of my head Butterfly being on one of my streams, unless it was maybe for one of my football streams, but it's been a while since I've heard from Butterfly. Yeah, Butterfly, let's go Wolves. And Butterfly supporting the T-Wolves in this one. As far as that Game 3 goes, I mean, I didn't really have much to say because it was an annihilation. But to be fair, one of my work buddies had said the Thunder do usually struggle in Game 3s. So I don't think the series is over yet. Like, even Arku even said in the first comment at the beginning of the stream, Arku's like, hey, I'm not worried about them. I mean, it's just one game. Because Arku knows the drill. I mean, it was an ugly game. It looks horrible. But remember, the Thunder still won games 1 and 2. Game 1, it was a competitive game. The Thunder took away the game late. You could tell Anthony Edwards' injury was playing a role in that series, not being in that game. And then Game 2 was a much tighter game. But the Thunder had their number. The one thing OKC's been doing well consistently throughout the playoffs is they've been playing defense. And that's why they made it as far as they have through the regular season and the playoffs. And Butterfly says, I want to see Ant versus Halliburton. And now that you mentioned it, it would be the perfect slap in the face to ESPN if that were to happen. Minnesota versus Indiana. Smaller market team versus smaller market team. How do you think the NBA will feel about that one? They're going to probably be scratching their heads at that one. They're going to be like, oh, man, we got to go to Indiana and Minnesota because, they love to go to the big market cities. That would actually be an awesome slap in the face to ESPN that just loves to over-promote cities like Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago. There's another one I just thought of. Sometimes over promoting the Chicago Bulls even when they're below average like they are currently. But yeah, the point being is if we do get T-Wolves and Pacers, even though I do think it's going to be the Thunder, that would be funny from the standpoint of now ESPN has to deal with Minnesota and Indiana as their two cities. Oh, man, but hey, that's how it works. But we're going to see what happens, though. Thunder are up 2-1. They still got SGA. I mean, he had a disappointing night for his standards on Game 3. But like I said, it's just one game. We come back, Game 4. Let's just see how these two teams do in Game 4. Let the teams go out there, play. Oh, yep. Just a curiosity. Does Butterfly still pop in the Pick and Roll podcast, or is this a sudden return? I'm just wondering, I'm curious, honestly. I don't mean to be nosy about it, but I'm just curious, that's all. But no, man, this was just such. Man, I think the Thunder can still bounce back. They still got a great all around team. Butterfly is everywhere. Hey, Butterfly, I know you. Yeah, I know you're making your rounds around the world, visiting certain places. But hey, if you miss me, just remember you can always catch me 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the 3-point blitz Mondays. So just remember that. So yeah, Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every week, 3-point blitz. Next week, episode 12. Week after that, episode 13, episode 14, and so on and so forth for the future. But yeah, I don't know. Though, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. I still think SGA and company's got it. Yeah, Alex Caruso and them. You still got players that can make it there. You got Jalen Williams and excellent but Robin on that team. It's all, but the T Wolves, hey, Julius Randle, if Julius Randle can stay in playoff form that he's been so far, this team has a chance. But you also need, as well, if you also need Jaden McDaniels too. Needs to step it up. If Jaden McDaniels can step up back to first round form against the Lakers, as well as Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards balling out, they could pull off this comeback, win 2, maybe 3 straight. You get a 3-2 lead if they can turn it around. I think outside of Julius Randle and Ant, the X factor for the T-Wolves could be Jaden McDaniels if he can get back to Lakers opening round form, because he was a big factor in that series. If he can just get back to that form, boom, you could have an excellent trio that could upset the Thunder, but we still got to wait and see what happens. For the Thunder, they got to put that game behind them. Get back to what you're doing great. Get back to SGA, being SGA, leading like the MVP he always has. Jalen Williams being the perfect Robin in that role. And you got Chet Holmgren, can still a solid player. Get back to producing on defense, and the Thunder can get back on top, close out this series. But yeah, hey, we still got to wait and see what happens, man. But like I said, it's the conference finals. Well, instead of feeling like it's certainly much better than where we were in the late 2010s, where it was the LeBron and Golden State Warriors show across the league. Honestly, my interest in the NBA during that time period wasn't that high. It really started to come back during that 2019-2020 season when they finally dropped the super teams in the 2019 offseason. And now we're at that point. Now we got 2 series of conference finals between 2 young teams with mostly young players on each in the 2 respective conferences. And come finals time, you're either going to get the OKC Thunder winning their first championship since the 70s as the Supersonics, or the T-Wolves' first championship in franchise history, which is cement Anthony Edwards' legacy. And on the flip side, you either got the Indiana Pacers winning their first NBA championship. They did win back in the ABA days, but then, but that was the ABA. Or the Knicks, first time since the 70s, winning a finals. Not to mention, they haven't been to a final since 99. So it feels like a breath of fresh air for the league. Yep, absolutely. Like I remember, I'm going back to 2021 with the Suns and Bucks. That was a breath of fresh air. After so many years of LeBron and Curry, with all due respect to LeBron and Steph Curry, great players, 2 of the all-time greats, but they had been to so many finals in a row between one or the other, or both, that finally getting that one finals without them was that breath of fresh air. And last what? And since then, we've only had 1 finals with one or the other, and that was 22. 23, we didn't get either. 24, we didn't get either. 25, we're not going to get either. We're going to get 2 teams that are either teams that haven't won in years or have never won, one or the other. It's going to be awesome, though. But the point being is, there's a lot of NBA playoffs to enjoy. A lot to talk about, YouTube shorts, a lot to talk about on the 3-point blitz on Monday. And who knows, if something interesting goes down and I just got time and maybe a crazy idea strikes me, I may go live improv, but I'll definitely be recording YouTube shorts about the NBA playoffs because of the excitement factor it has. That's why I'm on here doing what I'm doing, because I want to give these players and these teams credit. I want to give the young guys credit. That's why I'm coming on here after each game, doing a YouTube short, giving my thoughts on the game, to acknowledge the guys like the Jalen Brunson, the Tyrese Halliburtons, the Karl Anthony Townses of the world, to acknowledge the SGAs, the Jalen Williamses, the Ant Edwards, the Julius Randles. These guys that are going out there. Now, granted, Julius Randle isn't a spring chicken, but you get the point. The point is I'm giving these players that don't always get praise they deserve credit. Now, Julius Randle, he's been kind of hot and cold at times, but he's been mostly having a good playoff run. As Butterfly says, Towns' confidence has risen. And I think, you know what? I think for Karl Anthony Towns, being in a fresh environment, I think leaving Minnesota and going to a new place with the Knicks, a new environment, new locker room culture, was what he needed. It's just one of those situations where sometimes players need to find the right fit to truly maximize their full potential. And I think for Karl Anthony Towns, he just needed to leave Minnesota and find that right fit. And the Knicks have been the right fit for him. I mean, hey, that's just sometimes what happens in life. Sometimes a player just needs the right fit to make it work. And I think Minnesota really wasn't the best fit for Karl Anthony Towns. I kind of do think the whole Jimmy Butler escapade played a role in it, particularly the way Butler went about it. Because I get with Jimmy Butler, he didn't like the fact that Cat was smiling while they were down by 20. He took it as him not being dedicated, which I understood Butler's point. At the same time, I think the way he went about it, particularly the whole practice thing, may have took the blow to Karl Anthony Towns' confidence. And I think that took him. I don't think he really truly overcame that. And maybe now that he's finally in a new environment, away from the Minnesota locker room, away from the memories of being humiliated by Jimmy Butler, away from the shortcomings, away from the pressure of having to be the number one guy prior to Anthony Edwards overtaking that spot. I think now being the number two guy behind Brunson has taken some of that pressure off Towns, and now you see him starting to maximize his potential. He doesn't have that worry anymore. And now I think he's playing up to his best, and slowly but surely his confidence is starting to come back. So I think really that's what he needed. I think it was just a combination of the pressure of being in Minnesota as a former number one pick and the memories of being humiliated by Jimmy Butler to some degree played a role in it. And now that he's gotten away from that environment, he's basically got a fresh start in New York, and you see it working out. And these are factors, too, that a lot of times when we assess players, we don't think about. We don't think about these factors. And this is why I say where you get drafted and who you're surrounded with can play a role in your career trajectory. I know with Kwame Brown, I know this seems like the most random thought in the world. You're thinking, why is Nikki mentioning Kwame Brown in 2025? I'll explain why. It's been discussed that maybe when his case, the Wizards with Michael Jordan was the worst starting point for him. Some people think that maybe if he got a different starting point, his career would have gone a little bit better. And maybe that is true. Not saying that Kwame Brown would have necessarily been great. No. What I'm thinking is maybe if he had a better starting point, he could have been a more respectable player. His stats would have been a little bit better, because I think the way Michael Jordan led may have played a role in hurting his confidence. So sometimes those factors do play a role in a player's career trajectory. Sometimes it's about being put in the right environment to succeed. You could look at the NFL, take, say, David Carr with the expansion Houston Texans way back. He got put behind a horrible offensive line. He just kept getting sacked his rookie season. It's a miracle he survived without getting injured. But you could look back and say that David Carr got put me on a better offensive line. Maybe he would have played better. Not necessarily Pro Bowl caliber, but better. So sometimes where you get drafted can play a role in how things turn out. Sometimes shit that goes on around you can play a role in your confidence level. And I think for Karl Anthony Towns, he's in the right spot now. So, I mean, yeah, even though that may have seemed like a little bit of a spiel, though, but I do feel that's something that a lot of times when we assess sports, we don't discuss. Like sometimes, like I remember Matt Barnes, for example. He started off with the Sixers with Mo Cheeks. Mo Cheeks was not a fan of his game when he was the coach. And I think for Matt Barnes, him leaving the Sixers managed to be better for his career. He at least managed to be a respectable role player after leaving Philly. So sometimes those little factors can play a role in somebody's career. I just don't think Philly and Mo Cheeks was the right fit for Matt Barnes. I think he was better off elsewhere. I know Mitch might come out and say, oh man, I would have liked to have had Matt Barnes. Well, we had him, but I just don't think the Sixers was the right fit for him. And I could use a million examples, but the point being is sometimes these factors of fit, who your coach is, the relationship you have with your coach, your teammates, plays a factor in your career trajectory. Is it the only factor? No, it's not. Of course not. But it is a factor. It's something that sometimes we don't discuss when we analyze players and teams. But for Karl Anthony Towns, he's found that right fit. I think another example, Alex Caruso, he's in a better situation. He's in the perfect fit with the Thunder. Perfect team fit in the right spot. He's a good role player. He doesn't have to do too much. And he excels in that role. So I think that's an example of, hey, somebody finding the right fit. See, Ben Wallace with the Wizards and Magic, he didn't really do anything special until he got to the Pistons. But you look back on Detroit Pistons were the right fit for Ben Wallace, and he excelled in that system. 1 second, I got to plug in my laptop. And while we're still on the subject of system fits, you want to talk about the ultimate example? SGA. That's right, I said it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was with the Clippers with a head coach in Doc Rivers who favors playing veterans over younger players. I don't think SGA would have gotten the opportunity to break out had he stayed on the Clippers. So it was the best move for him to go to the Thunder where he could finally excel as a star. So point being is, yeah, you got to factor in who's the fit, who's the coach, who are their teammates. That can play a big factor in how players' career goes. Not the only factor, but it does play a bigger factor than we give credit for. And now we're at a situation, though, with the tie into the playoffs itself, where we're seeing players who are with the right teams, in the right roles to excel. Jalen Brunson going from role player behind Luka to being able to maximize his potential as a star for the Knicks. Point is, you see, with the 4 teams left, the 2 teams in the East, 2 teams in the West, players who are in the right system, with the right team, who are in the right place, right team around them, right situation to excel, and they're making the most of it. And we as fans are getting excellent basketball as a result. So I'll leave it at that with you guys. So to everyone that tuned in, Butterfly, long time no see. Glad you're in the chat again. Mitch, Arku, David, thanks for stopping by in the chat. Have a great Memorial Day. You might get 1 or 2 more shorts from me throughout the day. If not, have a great rest of your Memorial Day. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.